not Shawn Mullins, but I'd like to play him on TV. So Shawn runs Pfizer's manufacturing 4.0 team and could not be here with us this week. So I'm going to try to fill in and do my best Shawn Mullins impersonation. Hopefully everything here is aligned to what I said this morning. In the bigger speech, I haven't really looked at it. Typical Pfizer disclaimer, don't sell the stock based upon what I say here today, okay? You're not going to end up doing well. Don't buy, whatever, you know. Good point. Please buy. So this one, we were talking about Factory of the Future, and the idea here was let's go back in time and try to understand where some of this Industry 4.0 stuff started. And Back to the Future happens to be my favorite movie. So when Shawn brought this up, he's like, I'm going to use this image and go back in time. I was like, ooh, I love it. I love the idea. So I imagine Doc Brown coming out of the time machine like at the end of the first movie. Marty, we've got to go back. What's wrong? What's wrong? It's Industry 4.0. Nothing's going right. Nothing's connected. We've got to solve this problem. So I think Shawn might have been at that conference. That might be why he put it there. And Industry 4.0 is announced, and everyone starts creating IoT capabilities. What does this mean? And everyone starts saying IIoT, right? I love saying that. IIoT. I can't say. Usually I drop one of the I's. Industrial Internet of Things. And what does it really mean? You know, it's one thing to have a platform. It's another thing to connect stuff, another thing to do analytics. It can mean all those things, right? And sensor mania. This happened to us in our company. A C-level executive, we should have sensors everywhere. Okay. What problems would you like to solve? What outcomes would you like to drive? Like this is, hey, let's think this through. Nope, we just gotta have them everywhere. All right, that spun up several years of trying to explain. First of all, we already do have sensors in all of the equipment. It comes with the equipment, as my OT friends would say. We're streaming data all day, every day for 40 years, right? So this is not a new concept necessarily. The technology changed a little bit to enable us to do a little bit more with it. And that's the difference. But there is a big hype curve out there. People are doing a great job marketing and advertising the hype. So will it be everything we hoped for? And now I was looking at the slides going, oh, what points is he trying to get across here? So no, right? We did a lot of experimentation. We had a lot of failure in this journey. We had a lot of interesting things occur too. And then what happened on our trip was we started to play with IoT platforms. I think we had a flavor of the week every other week. Oh, we're going to go with this one. We kept changing our mind because as we started to get into them, we'd hit some kind of roadblock. Some of them were newer companies. Some of them were established players. But nothing was really hitting the mix for what we were trying to do. And then that's when we realized we have to be flexible. Like this is a new thing. Not everything's always going to work. We've got to experiment. So we did a lot of experimentation. And then what was interesting is the strategy around experimentation was who has an idea? Like, who's got an idea? Let's try these things out. And then we ended up with a bunch of random solutions that solved some kind of problem. It was all about problem solving. And they created that pilot value, that pilot purgatory. Like, you always hear, like, how do I get out of pilot purgatory? Hopefully I'll explain that. I think it's sheer will, right? So we have all these things. They're creating value in pockets. Everyone's frustrated because we can't expand them beyond what they are. So the first thing you have to realize about a biopharma process is when you're solving a problem on a line, you're typically solving a problem on that line for a product running at that point in time, because the next product that comes through is completely different. And the math you're doing to solve that problem is irrelevant to the problem you just solved. And once we started to realize that, okay, we need more of a platform play. We need the ability, as Jane was just explaining, to kind of plug and play some things on top of a platform to help us repeatedly solve problems. So our IoT stuff and the sensors started to become a data aggregation movement, data in context was a big deal. We heard about that earlier as well. And then coming up with a standardized approach to getting it off the floor. That was a big deal. First thing we did was we locked everything down. There was a big cybersecurity scare in the pharma industry back in around 2016. One of our partner, other companies had an issue, and that was a call to action for all the players in the industry. Most of the investment started to go in. I didn't answer the question this morning when somebody asked it, but there's a lot of investment in cybersecurity for the company, and then specifically for industrial cybersecurity. And that's an ongoing program. I was going to say problem. Ongoing program because there's a problem that doesn't really end. And what that allowed us to do, though, is also define secure channels to allow data to flow up off the floor. Right? And then we had to figure out, how do we actually do that? Because as I was talking about this morning, we have 39 plants. Everyone was built at a different point in time, different equipment, different standards, different communication protocols. Just to be fair, each OT team doing a good job of getting data off of their equipment for their own usage. But that's not scalable when you want to do it across everywhere. So we came up with a new standard actually over the last year. So, fast forward 6 years from initial idea to actually doing stuff. That's a bit repeatable. So the way the architecture is built now, we've proven it out in a couple different ways. And it comes back to that quote I mentioned this morning from Bezos about looking around at your competitors and waiting for people to do stuff. We were asked consistently, well, who else is doing it this way? Nobody. Nobody else is doing it this way. People are theorizing that this is the way to go. I want to be the first one out there, and I want to try it, and I want to prove to you it's going to work, and I want you on this journey with me because I think it's going to create a lot of value. So we actually went to our biggest, toughest plant that we have a really large set of programs going on at, and we started to show it to them because they were doing a lot of it themselves, and they were repeating a lot of work that maybe the IT team could help them with. And then it actually was a face-to-face meeting, so back to face-to-face contact, and after a week, everyone was on the same page. They started to see, oh yes, this will make life easier. And then we can innovate up here at the data layer, which is what we really want to do. We don't want to be into the data modeling and pulling stuff out. We have this manufacturing intelligence platform. Data can flow up onto it. It could be connected equipment. It could be standalone equipment. It could be lab equipment. It could be floor equipment. So a lot of that took grit, I think is the best term, to work through and figure out what's feasible and possible. I'm just going to wing this one, Shawn, when you're watching this later on. So after 2011, for us, I'm pretty sure I just went through all this, but most of our stuff was accessible but not connected. We had our IT-OT convergence issues. And data quality, we heard about this morning. Mike Carroll's right. Nobody has clean data. You have to figure out how to work with it. And our approach to it has been driven by failure, right? And trying to bring all the data to the cloud and magically figure out how to use it. That does not work well. But if you follow a use case driven approach, the data problem becomes much smaller and it's tangible and more easy to fix. So you pretty much only need 3 tables from SAP, 1 from your quality system, 1 from a lab system, right, in our environment. And you can combine that in 500 different ways and solve problems. Start with that. And then layer in your MES or your historian data or all the equipment, right? And then you can get more complicated in what you do. So that's a lot of what we focused on as we were moving forward. And that's purposely small so you can't see it, which harkens back to when I presented here in like 2010 when I did the same thing with 2-point font, not realizing why people were squinting at the screen. But the idea here is we've come up with this flow of data through the technology stack. We've been iterating through different things too. We're not afraid to swap out components. So we might have a strong play with a certain technology for a period of time, 2 or 3 years. And if it doesn't keep innovating and it's not solving our problems still, we actually phase it out and phase something else in. That's happened quite a bit in just a short 6-year time frame. And it always has to be an ad, right? There's going to be a value add reason to do it, but we're not going to stick with something just because we made the choice years previously. We are moving much more into where it says real-time AI-driven capabilities. We have a strategic goal to move up the digital, we call it the digital plant maturity model. It's a BioForum, is a group that I belong to. It's an industry group. And it's people that got together a few years ago to define what good looks like for a digital plant in biopharma. And if you move up the maturity curve, paper, digital silo, connected, predictive, adaptive, we're trying to get our top 11 plants to level 4 by 2025. We started saying that in January, and here we are. We haven't even finished the business case, but it's an ambitious goal, right? It's really hard to move up a level because the kinds of things you're trying to accomplish are not typically things that you can just go easily do. So we're looking at this from a very programmatic approach. We have all the tools in the toolbox. We understand now where every plant's starting from. We did the brute force exercise of what equipment do you have and how much of it's connectable, because we didn't know that before. You couldn't just go to a database and pull up, here's all the equipment and its connection status. Through the cybersecurity program, actually, that helped us out a lot on identifying all that stuff. That's a good side benefit of doing cyber on industrial equipment. And then once you understand that layout of here's what's connectable, here's what we need to do to connect more stuff, and then here's how it's going to flow up the stack, you can look at your enterprise systems and say, where do I not have a foundational lab system or a foundational MES system, or the MES system's 20 years old and it needs to be upgraded? You can map all that out. And then you can say, instead of looking at this from the solution perspective, what if I look at it from a value stream perspective? So shop floor operations, lab operations, quality operations, so on and so forth. And then think about the people, the personas that Jane was talking about. Who's doing the work? What process-centric team are they in? What's the grouping of work? And by the way, you can reverse engineer that from system usage if you have the usage data. You can see who works with whom. It's something that we do to figure out business adoption of systems. Like, how do we penetrate further if we don't know? If we know who's using it and who's not, we can actually figure out communication campaigns to get people on board. It's really kind of cool. And then you bring all this together from a value stream perspective, and then you're starting to talk about this transformation unit. I'm not just doing individual deployments of capability anymore. Now I'm going to an operational unit and saying, okay, we want to make your life better. We want to make it easier. There's 40 things in this universe. You have 10 of them. Which of these makes sense to you, right? That's the listening part. I'm not going to force all 40 on you if you don't need them. Now, 40 is too many, by the way. I get that too. So we can also be informed on how do we evolve and make it simpler over a period of time. I'm drifting away from the mic. I can see Mike looking, and he's like, stay near the mic. So, how do we bring that all together? So it's definitely a journey, as Jane said, no doubt about it. It's not been easy. We got a couple metrics at the bottom there, but everything we do is about reducing cycle time. Ultimately, we have very large goals on cycle time reduction, which is all about the ability to make capacity where there isn't capacity so that we can make more product and deliver it to patients, which is a big deal. And then at the same time, if we can get more through in a shorter period of time, that's a double win, right? If it's of high quality, we're hitting a home run. So that's what I have for now.